Thank you.
Great. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Majd Nazo, and my topic is ARCHILLUSION, a thesis of illusions in architecture. And my problem statement is that I feel like today's architecture lacks character, a case of stripped identity. The modern style has managed to remove all descriptive elements as if nude, without clothing, reduced to bare minimum. According to research by Zarskaya, Anstis, and Bartels, stated that grouping local elements into a holistic percept, also known as spatial binding, is crucial for meaningful perception. Bottom line is there is a gradual effort to remove all descriptive elements from architecture, and in the process I've also removed artistic elements from architecture, making them very boring, removing its uniqueness and character along the way. To start with the research, I developed 5 problem words that identified lacking buildings, lacking visually, that is, and there was research developed as well or found to back these words. Also, some samples. We have some case studies in the San Diego County area that also looked into some buildings that required some facade improvements. And I'll go through these quickly just due to time. So the summary overall of the case studies that all sites share a commonality. There was a lack of design aesthetic. The facades are very minimal. There's no description of program, no stimulation, no social gathering intent. Tourism is a terrific economical factor. So, boring facades hinder this thought. So there needs to be a push to bring artistry back into architecture. Along the way with the research, I developed some sketches to implement basically some new techniques within architecture to use these illusion techniques, and I'll actually utilize quite a few of these that I'll show you later on. Using the problem words, a criteria was developed. In the first quarter, Balboa Theater sort of hit on all points. So there was an intent to also improve, and here's some slight improvement sketches of these buildings. But after the first quarter, I felt that I needed to push a bit further, and focusing on facades was hindering me to implement more. So after speaking with Professor Manlogat, I actually focused on creating a typology at site, and choosing a site here was in downtown San Diego, and it's near the San Diego airport. You have Little Italy here, the convention center. It's a tourist destination, and it's this parking lot here. It's really a missed opportunity. It's a great real estate, great site that's underutilized. And some massing studies were developed to sort of get some ideas to implement within this site, and I do end up using some of these, so keep an eye out on these shapes here. So the best way to incorporate these techniques is to create a typology, which was basically an illusion museum that incorporated all artistic elements in 2D design, and within the process are implementing illusional techniques within the architecture itself. There were some program studies using bubble diagrams, quite a few of them, to try to develop the site and placement and adjacencies of the spaces. There was also traffic analysis done. This is a heavy intersection here on Harbor Drive between Hawthorne and Grape Street. People coming from the 5 to get to the airport. So there was a push to get traffic to go underground to reclaim this public space. So to start, the initial design obviously had to be illusion based. So Mr. Manlogat suggested I start with the landscape. And so I use this Canisa triangle by Gaetano Ganiza, and I use these social nodes basically to create these spaces that use an imaginary triangle that forced the point of view of the visitors to interact with each other, and there'll be art placed in the center, which I'll go in further. There was visibility studies as well, approaches, things that might hinder the building or the site. Just to give some context, again, San Diego Bay here, the I-5 here, the airport, so on and so forth. And we'll zoom in on this site plan here. So as you can see, we have as well the North Embarcadero, a popular boardwalk basically that's used by tourism and locals. And the idea is, again, is to invite people into the site. And I use this radial geometry to place these social nodes, and it kind of became the language for the site overall and the placement of the spaces. And just to be clear, due to time for the year, I only concentrated on the landscape and the center spaces. I did not, the outside spaces are not developed. To jump right into the drawings, we have the ground level as sort of a rib-like open floor plan, open to the public. These galleries are open to the public that can be utilized. so free flowing. You have some louvers in the center aisle here to provide some passive cooling from the San Diego Bay. And the perimeter wall is basically steel, reflective steel, which I'll talk about a little bit further down. Here's the second level. Again, we have the youth gallery and the interactive gallery where light is controlled, and so no windows. Perfect placements for murals for these sites here. And then we have the theater, which is actually more of a communal space that can be utilized by residences and people who rent out the space overall. We have a huge glass here. The intention of this design is to have a dual glass that you can basically project images and video that can be shared on the interior of the space and the exterior, but also due to the light and stuff is you have these sort of panels that come in on the interior to block the sun from coming in, and also from the exterior if it needs to be private. Moving on, we have the first section here, just to give some context again of the parking structure and the approaches here, and just to give you some scale of these galleries overall. And you can see here, I'll talk about this a little bit further, is the wall, the shape of the wall here. Here's the second section. Again, passive cooling that goes through the louvers that basically cools the building. And I also put the HVAC system in the ground floor that is hidden, that supplies air and returns air as well. We'll zoom into this wall detail here. So very basic wall detail. You have the roofing. I chose terracotta walls due to its flexibility and the use of molds, so it's very customizable. And a very simple structure here, a steel structure that I used for the building as well. And to go to the renders, again, this is sort of more, give you more context of the landscaping. Each social node has its own color and its own tree, and the trees actually get larger as they radiate out of this ripple, this visual ripple, as it goes towards the building. And as you can see, the paths cut through right through the building, and there's some statues here that provide some fun shadows as well, where if you're sitting here and socializing, you can have different views. So this is basically what I call the ocean wall, and I wanted to push this a bit further, and instead of having a flat basic wall, I utilized this perspective looking down on an ocean with boats, and the boats are actually become the entrances into the theater. And it's a 3D, the walls actually gives it form to sort of imitate a wave, to give it that feeling, a different perspective. And here you can see the reflective outside panels and the columns, and there would be a warped design here that reflects into the column that gives the design itself that could be added or removed. So we'll zoom in onto this section here on ground level. One observation that I found with this material that was terrific, for example, if you see this wall here, if this was a concrete wall, the line of separation would have been very evident. This actually material blends in very well the second level and the ground level. So it's sort of a blending technique for physical forms, as if you're drawing. And so it basically reflects the material right adjacent to it and it blends it in. So that was a cool feature and something that I've noticed. And the building itself has life due to its reflective, so it changes depending on the lighting and the people who are running through it, and it gives these nice compositions overall. There's another approach as well of the building looking out into the bay and providing some shading here, so some really open space. We have the entrance to the theater. I used forced perspective to provide, so sort of give it a depth basically effect. I wish I had more time. I would have added some more fluting columns and some detail to bring this more to life. And then the opposite side, we have basically I've used some colors. So if you use darker colors towards the end, it kind of creates an atmospheric perspective. And actually I've used some murals just for context, my artwork here, but this would be basically this whole building. You can use murals or artwork to make it pop out. And you can utilize these specific shapes here. Here's a nice shot as well of the building. The park would be very well lit, safe for families to attend after dark. And this gives you an idea of the view of this building here. And again, this reflective makes it seem as if it's floating. And we have a presentation up here taking place. Finally, we have this could be utilized as a sort of a movie, outdoor movie space as well. That reflective screen, as you can see here, they're watching Inception. And there would be also a light projection attached here that would basically use this as a canvas to project any light design needed to basically bring some artistic elements back into the structure in particular. And in this case, I just used some stars to align it with the background. To end it overall, the process overall for architecture has been terrific. The school itself has taught me a lot. One thing I've definitely picked up from the education that was very crucial overall is time management is very important. Overall, the school has prepared me for the profession of architecture. This project itself, I love Illusion as a young kid, so it was sort of a step to try to figure out a way to implement 2D designs into 3D architecture. And I wasn't sure in the beginning when I started if it was doable. But at the end of this, I think it is very much possible to do so, is to implement these techniques to basically enhance the space, to bring social gatherings, to deceive the eye in some sorts. So overall, I think the project fared out well. And thank you so much for joining me and joining us in general, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Majd.